The cloud, it's something that everybody, so most of us, we use every single day in all times. That's the way we have our services. Maybe they have some accounts, the recovery accounts, the databases, maybe some other services, they all live in the cloud. But in reality, what is the cloud and what are the cybersecurity consequences to have certain events there or your information there? This is the Hacker's Corner. Hi everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to the Hacker's Corner. My name is Servín. I'm an associate professor here at El Paso Community College. I teach the classes of computer science, information security, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, along other classes that we're currently offering at El Paso Community College. Another thing that we're actually running right now is Hack the Border. Hack the Border, as you've been following for the past weeks and months, is the very first initiative between El Paso Community College and other partners that are across the border. Hack the Border has as initiative to disseminate cybersecurity concept, but also to solve real-world problems in the border. The title is Hack the Border, a binational adversarial series for the border good, which means that we're trying to solve problems that are happening right here in the region, in different areas, in different fields. And one of the areas that we're trying to achieve this solution is by providing professional developments. We're in the last week of this semester that we're going to offer these workshops in cybersecurity. One of the workshops that we're going to talk about today, one of the speakers, is about DevOps, particularly DevSecOps. The Sec stands for security. Remember that we have also the final big event, which is the hackathon. The hackathon, it's a main event where actually we can call it as a competition where different elements and members from this society, from this community, we're going to gather together at EPCC in November 17 to the 19th, 2022. And there's an agenda in hacktheborder.org. I'm going to extend this invitation that everybody goes and register for this main event. It's a 3-day event. It's going to be awesome. And because we have different players there, we have, of course, we have EPCC students, but also we have partners from Ciudad Juarez, from the Artificial Intelligence Center, and the UACJ. We have this whole area, this whole event is being sponsored by EPCC and Microsoft. Today, we will talk about a topic that is being emerging for the past probably years, but now it's paying a lot of attention because of the whole cybersecurity elements and also the areas that has been impact, cloud computing. So cloud computing is one of the emerging computing areas that has been there for a while. Matter of fact, at EPCC, we're offering, it's in the works to have a certificate that will enhance cloud computing, specifically in cybersecurity. So hopefully, if you are interested in these emerging computing areas, please visit us at EPCC in computing. So we have solutions for you. And we're very lucky to have Daniel Saenz, who is a good friend for many years. As a matter of fact, I remember seeing you from UTEP. At some point, you were my student, I believe so. Yes. Hopefully, I don't remember very well, but yes. I do remember very well, by the way. But Daniel, he has been in this whole collaborative aspect with Cesar Valenzuela, with Gilbert Ornelas, who have been in the show previously. So the very nice project that you guys are been doing together for Hack the Border, which is DevOps, it's been so popular and so important that you guys broke this main workshop in 2 mini workshops, because so much the material that you are actually covering. And I was there actually in the last workshop. Students, they were excited. People, they were actually super excited about to see a real world exploit. Well, let's call it exploit for now. Yeah. But in reality, hopefully it's not in a malicious way, but only for educational purposes. Yes. And the way you guys actually brought it to the student was beautiful. Students, they actually told me that They learn a lot, especially because they have to do a little bit of coding, a little bit of scripting, and also how you connect the ports. So tell us a little bit about these projects that you have been bringing through all these years, and what we anticipate from this Hack the Border, this workshop on DevOps. But start talking about a little bit about your experience from education all the way how you arrived to this place.
Okay, thank you, Servín. My name is Daniel Saenz. Thank you for having me today. Yeah, you're my professor almost more than 10 years ago.
Almost 10 years
more than
ago.
10 years ago. But yeah,
very good student.
Yeah. You and I talked together, a couple times, and there's something I wanted to tell the students specifically.
Okay.
A lot of students think that only top students, can make it there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a top student.
You mean like the top 10 students, like honor students?
Honor students,
like all this,
top 10 students, 4.0 students.
Oh, yeah.
Usually people think, oh, they're going to get the Microsoft job, right? They're going to get the Google job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not impossible, right? I don't think it's impossible.
No, absolutely
I
not.
feel that, to me, I came from, I was a C student.
A C student?
I was a C student.
I love the C student because we're all computing. And that's how we feel with the C.
Yeah.
Just teasing. That's how I always visualize that.
Yeah.
Anyway, please.
So I consider back in college me being a C student,
Mm-hmm.
I struggle a lot. To me, it was very difficult to, be paying attention to something and make sure I understand what was going on. So it took me a long time actually to get my bachelor's, close to 6 years it took me.
Okay.
But I'm proud that I eventually, I was able to graduate and get my bachelor's. And I graduated with a 3.0, but I'm proud of that, 3.0. After that, I was fortunate enough that I got my first job as a developer 2 months before I graduated, actually. And that's how I started my professional experience as a developer. Worked for 4 years for a local company, just doing software development, typical, creating Java classes, deploying those in a web application, And then my wife, she started her master's degree. And I didn't. She told me, I'm going to start doing this. And I'm like, okay, you do you. But then I started seeing how she liked it a lot. And she started pushing me to like, hey, let's see if you can do this.
To pursue a master's degree.
A master's degree.
Oh.
So I was back in 2015. I decided to start my master's in software engineering.
From UTEP?
From UTEP. One thing that I would tell the students is that to me, it helped me a lot getting that professional experience before I started my master's.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's when when I made that transition from a C student to a top student. Because on my master's, I did completely amazing. To me, it was super, I don't want to call it super simple, because obviously there's still a lot of work that you need to do during your classes, and but to me, it was a lot easier to take when just having that professional experience in place.
Especially in computer science, no? Because as a software engineer, you see other things that we teach you some stuff that's in the book. And then you go to industry, it's like, OMG.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with what I just learned a couple months ago in the classroom. So as a software engineer, you open this, I always say this Pandora box, and everything goes there. And it's like, we're trying to fix it, because as a software engineer, you are trained to solve problems. But when you see this problems, like, wow, this is a completely different problem from the books. I like how you said when you come back with that experience, you see the world very different.
Yeah, completely different.
Completely
different. Yeah, when I came back, to me, was a lot of it made a lot more sense. Like especially working with other people. To me, at the beginning, it was really hard to work with other people. Like, how am I going to work with these people? Like I think I can do this by myself, but working together, actually understanding what the other guy doesn't understand and what you don't understand, then trying to get together and try to, solve a problem together, and making sure that both of you understand it, that to me, that's priceless. And
so teamwork and understand the other personality per se, right? Especially as a software engineering personality, it's probably one of the most challenges that you have. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, at the beginning, like I said, when I was in college, I never actually enjoyed working in teams. To me, it was like I think I can just do it by myself. But after college, getting that professional experience and then getting to know important people in your life, and I call it important because that, and I guess I'll talk about that in a minute. But getting to know some people that really push you to like, okay, you can do better. I'm not saying I'm better than you, but you can do better, and I'm gonna teach you how to do it, and we all can learn together.
I love it. I think that's one of the main motivations that most of us we like to see. That sometimes we look at the challenges, sometimes we look at that individual that push you, and the most important is we need to understand this separation as, okay, I have my ideas, but also in deployment, you see other ideas running at the same time. And I can tell you, as a software engineer, that's not easy to distinguish between one and another one, because as a software engineer, you understand the piece of code, and you claim ownership. It's like, this is mine, this is my pressure, this is something that I've been doing for all these years, and you take pride. And some other engineer is like, excuse me, but do you mean this? And it's like, it starts this adversarial thinking about what can we make better, but at the same time, in a friendly way. Because you guys work at the same time, in the same place.
Accepting positive feedback.
Positive
feedback. It's accepting that, always being open to any feedback, anything that you do, being open to that, that's priceless to me.
I agree.
That's gonna push you forward, always.
I agree. So you are a Senior DevOps Engineer, which for those who remember in the last talk, I always have visualized that when you have computer science, we train you to solve problems and do some programming and understand the state of the art of solving problems using the computing. And there's a second iteration of computer science and become software engineers when you actually build software with the fundamentals. There's some principles of software engineer. That's the second iteration of computing that I can see. Now there's another iteration that is called DevOps, which is development operations, when you already have a lot of software up and running for the past decades. But now you have this pipeline where you can have checkpoints where actually you have this deployment, and you can backtrack, you can also deploy information and recover very quick. Tell us a little bit about this work that you're presenting in Hack the Border with us.
Sure. So I'm a DevOps engineer, like you mentioned earlier. And my main job is to facilitate, and I like to think it this way, to facilitate a developer's needs, if you want to think about it that way. So there's already a solution in place. Maybe it's already even deployed into a server or an already working server. Going forward, we want to see how we can automate that deployment without the need of any manual, mistake or input from maybe the operations team, right? That's when we introduce this concept of pipelining. And we divide it into stage, like you mentioned earlier, where we have a process of, okay, now I have this repository which has all the components of my application. I'm gonna build this within the pipeline, and then I'm gonna deploy it into a server or a cluster environment like Kubernetes.
Kubernetes. What is Kubernetes?
Kubernetes is actually, I like to think it as a cluster environment where you can deploy multiple applications, or think about it, multiple VMs, and it's very easy for them to communicate, but they're on their own network. They live on their own network.
VMs, virtual machines.
Yes.
Right. So a virtual machines, as the word says, is a machine, that it lives maybe in a cloud or somewhere else, and worst comes to worst, you make something wrong, don't worry, we can recover it, or we can actually, if it's damaged, don't worry, we can recover it. Is that what you mean?
Yes, actually, not a lot of people like to think of it this way, but I personally, that's how I understand it, or how it makes a lot of sense to me. I like to think about a container as a little mini virtual machine. When you get exposed to deploying virtual machines, sometimes you have like this specific machine. Think a machine is an operating system, right? A Windows machine, a Linux machine, and a lot of the times you have access to the UI of the operating system, right? Like you can actually connect to that. In a container, obviously, sometimes you don't have that complete access. Most of the time, it's just a a plain, terminal access to the machine, but it's a pretty small package, and that's what they call them containers. It's a very, very small package, and you can put all the dependencies for your applications to run, and they're very simple and portable to move from X to Y. And what I mean is, okay, if I have this deployed in X server, I can easily just move that application into another server without having to worry about any type of environments or dependencies that this specific container needs. Mm-hmm. That's why using containers now in DevOps, it's new future.
Can you give us an example? For example, because you mentioned move from one application from point X to point Y.
Yeah. So let's think about it this way. Let's say I have a web application. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe it's just a simple application where you just log in and you have a list of users. I don't know, something very simple, a hello world application, right? Now, normally when you want to replicate that environment, let's say that works on my machine. I'm testing that and it works on my machine, but a lot of people think that because it works on my machine, it's going to work everywhere else, but it's not necessarily always the case, right? Sometimes you need, I don't know, maybe you don't have the specific Java version that you need, or any third-party dependencies or packages that you need. So you need to make sure that you take all that into account before you redeploy that application into another server. Mm-hmm. Like every time you're doing that, you always need to remember that you have those dependencies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But creating a container, you're already putting all of those dependencies inside that container. And all I gotta do is just give you that container, and just as long as you have access to a cluster environment, like I said, Kubernetes, or even Docker alone, just for testing, it'll work.
Docker.
Yes.
What's a Docker?
Docker it's a tool, I like to call it a tool, which help you build your Docker containers. In this case, Docker images. And in order to build those, you provide a list of the steps you can script, dependencies, what type of languages or what type of operating system you're going to be using. Like I said, I like to think about it as a little mini virtual machine. So you can always specify, what I'm going to be using Alpine, which is a Linux environment. I'm going to be using Ubuntu, or depending on which type of environment you want to use. Mm-hmm. You specify all of that into a script, and then you build your Docker container. And once you have your Docker container, you can move it around.
Interesting, because I would like to see this when you mention applications. I mean, this seems to be like what we've been pursuing for many years. I mean, when we were students, when we're still students, I remember when we were actually doing some applications, save it. We carried our USB back and forward, and if you forget your USB in the laundry machine and then destroys your USB, all your information got destroyed. Yes. You feel horrible. But interestingly speaking is like, for example, now this dependency, it will be nice to whatever we write, we save it and get saved in this Docker, which is this small component that you're talking about that lives somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Like worst comes to worst, you can recover it, you can bring it. So what I can see right now is like this big cloud with some service, and they have all these different, users' profiles. And when you pull that thing, it gives you these personalized things that all of the other ones have. Maybe, for example, you have Microsoft tools, maybe you have internet, like all of them, they have the same things, but you can customize depending of what you want.
Yeah.
Did I a good job explaining what more or less that Docker is? Yes. And now Docker is basically seems to be like a concept that you can simplify in DevOps is very popular, because you can have very nice stage in your pipeline about all these different resources. For me, it's beautiful, that part. Tell us a little bit more about how this work is being amplified.
Well, right now, what we use a lot of Docker for everything that where I work. We use a cloud environment. It's called OpenShift, and it's essentially using Kubernetes. It's working on top of Kubernetes. So anything you use in Kubernetes, you can do in OpenShift. Mm-hmm. So the pipeline pretty much grabs your code, which you can store your code in. I don't know, some of you may be familiar with GitHub. You can, that's a repository where you can put in your code. Mm-hmm. And then you can customize the pipeline to, I'm gonna pull that code that you have in this repo. Let's call it GitHub or some other repository. I'm gonna pull that. And I'm gonna look for a specific file that I need to understand what you're trying to do. in what I'm working at, we use Jenkins. So it's looking for a file called Jenkins file. In that Jenkins file, you can specify all of the stages you need. In this case, you want to build a solution, right? You want to build a Docker image. You want to make sure it has all of the tools that you need in there. The solution you're building, I don't know, maybe the web application, you put all that in that container. And then you push that container to a place that it's easy accessible from a Kubernetes environment in this case.
Okay.
And then you can put all those scripts and tell Kubernetes, hey, the image is ready, deploy it. It's good to go. And then Kubernetes will grab it, deploy it.
So what kind of problem this solution solved, if you may?
Manual mistakes, I guess, when trying to deploy something or some type of downtime in your web application.
You
in
mentioned,
this case, yes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
In this case, for instance, if you had a web application, imagine having zero downtime and just going from one version into another version without maybe sometimes you're even noticing.
You didn't notice. And
the client or the user.
The developer is a completely different story.
The developer is a different story.
There's nightmares behind that scene. But you mentioned manual's mistakes. So because there's someone who they click something, they drop a different piece of code, and actually that damage thousands of hours of work, but it's that kind of solves that kind of human error or actually something that was out of place. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and sometimes going back into a previous version, just normally will take you a long time, a couple hours. Using Kubernetes, the Kubernetes, it's really simple just to roll back from one version into the previous version, and again, without having to have any downtime.
So it's beautiful, this concept, because I remember when I have a Mac, and I remember when I recognized Time Machine, I used to save, I used to have backups. Maybe I should do it every month, then sometimes I forgot, which I regret later on. But I remember I was doing this manually, these backups. And then something called Time Machine that actually back up every single step, like maybe every day. So sometimes I still remember that I forgot or I lost kind of things. But this seems to be, okay, let's put this aside. We will have you these versions. And if something goes wrong, don't worry, we got you. And actually I have seen this. For example, I use other products in the cloud. For example, Google Docs. When I'm writing something and something goes wrong, it's to the cloud, I have to be connected to the internet. Some disconnection was there. It's like, I didn't save it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Nobody saves this anymore, right? It's been already in the cloud in some kind of container, some kind of Docker. Is that basically says? And yes, indeed, I got internet again. Go there, it's like, it's exactly where I left.
Yeah.
For me, it was amazing because I have all this. The majority of my my stress is because I type a couple words, Control S, save, Control save. But this seems to be just relax and just let the whole system do it for you.
Yeah. So essentially, that's what we're trying to do. As a DevOps engineer, I'm trying to facilitate the developer not thinking about deploying their solution.
Right.
So in the developer's mind, all they gotta do is just, okay, I'm gonna work on my feature. I don't know, something that I need to add a new button, right, to the application, a green button or something. They create a button, they make it look good and everything. They commit their changes and they push those into the GitHub repository. But guess what? You can configure the pipeline to automatically trigger as soon as the developer hit enter, committing their changes.
And we talked about GitHub with Cesar last time. Tell us what to expect in the next workshop, in the advanced one.
Sure. In the next workshop, what we're going to be doing is actually we're going to showcase a little application. Actually, we're going to be using, we didn't talk about this, but 2 microservices. We're going to have those 2 microservices in GitHub.
Okay.
And then we're going to make some changes real quick. We're going to trigger the pipeline, and we're going to see how the pipeline runs from one stage to another. And then we'll deploy that. It's not going to be in Kubernetes, but we're going to deploy that in a local environment. We're going to have the students grab that configure file and redeploy that very easily from their computers.
When you talk about deployment, I remember when we used to work, years of difference in one institution at UTEP many years ago. I remember when we talk about the word deployment, everybody was actually very serious. It's like, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes. 3, 2, 1. We were like this. We were hoping that nothing goes wrong.
Yes.
And now you talk like, oh, they're gonna deploy X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, deploy was used to be the sacred word for everything. So obviously for you now, you see the transition of this deployment component into different APIs and different concepts. So for me, it's beautiful, and I'm really looking forward to see the workshop. Hopefully you can, hopefully whoever is attending, they share the same feeling with me and the same sentiment. Thank you so much for coming today to the Hackers Corner. It was great to see the 3 different flavors of the workshop. The 3 of you actually have a different mentality. For those who have been in the workshops, it's amazing the way these individuals, they share the workshop. They bounce the ideas back and forward with different perspectives at the same time, and the students, they recognize that. I did recognize that. I think it was beautiful dynamics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who has been giving us the feedback on the YouTube channel. Please visit the YouTube channel from EPCC TV. We have a nice repository and inventory of different shows from the Hackers Corner. Also visit the other shows, which are great. Some of them are actually integrating together. And please visit the hacktheborder.org for more information about this hackathon that we're running. I want to thank all my team who has been helping us tremendously in this effort, and of course our partners. My name is Christian Servín. I'm an associate professor, and I want to thank you for all your support and for our guest speakers and for following in us. See you next time. Happy coding.